Hello again and welcome back. So in the last one we updated our menu to where we can select an item and we set up the buttons to be able to use it or drop it. So let's set up the functionality for that now. But before we get into that, just a little mini announcement thing. So I had tried to adopt an upload schedule to where I was only going to release like 2 videos at a time through the week, but that doesn't really make sense for tutorials since they're for learning. They should get out to y'all as quickly as possible. So just to let y'all know, if y'all are subscribed and you have that little bell thingy ticked, you might want to undo that. You might want to untick that thing, because I'm about to knock out a lot of this series just all in one go, and I don't want to blow up y'all's phones with notifications and stuff like that. But yeah, I want to get these out to y'all rapid, so I'm about to upload just a lot of them. So if you need to, I completely understand, untick that bell, or if you need to unsubscribe and come back later on when they're all done, just so it doesn't like cause any issues for y'all or whatever, because I know people work and they got all kinds of stuff they're doing that they don't need their phone just blowing up with so, but yeah, I'm about to just knock out a lot of these. Alright, that said, let's jump into how to set up this using the item functionality. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go into the player blueprint, because we're going to set up a bunch of functions over here. So in the blueprint panel underneath the graphs, you'll see functions right here. The first one we want to set up is one called use item, and it's going to take an input of item info. So I'll call that item info. I'll change that to the item info struct. And then when we use an item, this is where the enumerators are really going to come in handy. So when we use the, let's actually call the function. So inside the menu, highlight your use button, scroll all the way down in its details panel to the on clicked. So we'll drag out our player reference, and then we're going to call that use item function we just set up. And then we're going to feed where. Oh, okay, well, we'll just do it this way. We didn't set up one in here, so just drag the player reference back a little bit and just get the selected item. The item selected, I guess it's called. And just feed that right there. That'll work. Could not find the function use item. Oh, if you get this error, like this little warning pops up, what I forgot to do is I forgot to compile the player blueprint and then call that function. So that's, if you ever are calling a function in another graph and it says we couldn't find it, just go back to the graph you set it up in, recompile it real quick, and then when you go back it should be fine. So with that done, let's go back to the player blueprint, which I guess we could have just called the use item function, or the selected item right here, but either way works. So from the item info that we're feeding in, we want to break it open, because this is where we're going to start using our enumerator of the item type. So from the item type, I'm going to drag off and type in switch on item type. So this will pull out that list that we set up, and we can do different things based on the type of item we're trying to use. So from here, let's set up a few more functions. So the ones I'm going to set up right now is I'm going to restore health, restore mana, equip sword, equip shield. So over in the functions where we set up the use item, I'm going to just add those real quick. So restore health, restore mana, change sword, change shield. Going to compile that real quick, and then I'm going to go back to the restore health function, because that's the first one we're going to set up. Now we want this to take an input. What an input is basically when we call this function over here, it'll let us input something so that it registers in here. And it says add an input, but it looks like it's an output, but it's an input when you call the function. So I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to add that input. And we want to call this restore amount, basically how much health we're about to restore to the player. So I'm going to change that to a float type. So when we restore the character's health, we want to go grab our current health, get it, and then we want to add. So we'll drag off here and we want a plus sign. You want to make sure that the current health is the top amount because it'll take this and add this to it. So, well, hell, I guess it works either way. But still, just this is the way I'll do it. Then we'll drag out that current health variable one more time, and we are going to set it to the new amount. Now, another thing we want to do is, if we've restored their health, but let's say they were at like 95 health, our potion restores 15, but their max health is 100. We don't want them to run around with 110 health. So let's drag off this return to check and see if it's greater than or equal to our max health. So if it's greater than or equal to our max health, we'll just go ahead and set it to the max health. That way we're always at the right amount. So we'll just add a branch right there. And on true, if our current health is greater than or equal to our max health, we'll just set our current health to that max health. Just like so. So now in the use item function, if the item is a health item, then we will call that restore health function. And the amount that we want to restore is right here in our item info. It's the potency. So if you have one potion that restores like 15 or another one that restores 100, it doesn't matter. It'll always restore the right amount. So just to check that real quick, I'm going to set my character's health to 50. Because I think that potion restores what, like 25, I think? Well, let's find out. So I'm going to pick up a potion. Well, I'm going to pick up potions. And then when I use it, health jumps up. Now, just to make sure that it is doing appropriately on our restore health function, I'm going to call a print string at the very end. And I'm just going to feed that float directly into it. So that when it's setting our health back to the max health, it'll just... So yeah, full health. Excellent. Alright, so now, once we've used an item in our inventory, we want to remove it from our inventory. So I'm going to add one more function called remove item. And I'm going to drag this up to right underneath the use item function. This will also take an input of the item info. That will be that item info struct. Compile that real quick so that we can go back to our use item function and call that. So I'm just going to drag this from all the way over here straight into there. I'm going to reroute it a little bit just to clean it up a little bit. So when we remove the item, we want to find out how many of that item we have. So first we're going to break that item open. No, that's not true. The first thing we want to do is we want to find that item in our inventory. So we're going to drag out our inventory, and we're going to drag off it and find item. The item we want to find is the item info that we just fed in. So now what this does is it'll search this entire array to find this specific item. And it'll return the index of the item. So we want to get a copy of the item at that instance. Then we want to break the info. So I'm going to drag that down a little bit. So we want to find out if the current stack is less than or equal to 1. Because if we're using the last item, then we want to just remove it completely. If it's not, then we want to just set it down by 1. So we will drag off that current stack, find out if it's less than or equal to, and we want that to check to see if it's less than or equal to 1. We'll add a branch right here, and that's what we will hook to the remove item function at the very beginning. And if it is less than or equal to 1 when we use it and remove it, then we want to remove item. The item we want to remove is the one we just found inside our inventory, and we want to remove it from our inventory. So if it's not less than or equal to 1, then we want to adjust the array element. So I'm going to drag this one down just a little bit, and we want to set array element. Set array element. Hook this to the false, and I'm going to drag it over here. So we'll hook this directly to the index. Or you can do this one right here. Either one should work. But I'm just going to use that one right there. The array element that we're wanting to adjust is our inventory. So now we want to break it open from this side. Or, I suppose, make it from this side. And then we can drag this down. And break it open one more time. And you'll just hook everything up, except for the current stack. You want to subtract. So we'll do -1 on that. But then everything else gets hooked, fed right back into it. Oh, if you remember, if you got wires askew and stuff like that, you can box select everything you want to straighten and hit Q on the keyboard, and it'll just straighten it right out. Alright, and that will remove it from our item. But now we want to check one more thing. We want to find out, is the menu currently open? Which it will be if you're using an item. So we'll drag out our menu reference and get it. And I'm going to right off here say is valid. I always like to do checks and balances. It should 100% of the time be valid, but if there's any other time that you might remove an item, well, it should always be valid, but just, you know, checks and balances are always good to have. Then I'm going to drag off here and get the inventory panel. Clear the children from it if it is valid. And then I want to rebuild. No, that's got to be from the menu. Alright, then we want to rebuild. Not rebuild. It's just build, isn't it? Yeah, build inventory. Then we'll build the inventory. That way it's updating as we're using it. So compile that real quick and let's test it. So yeah, it's using my thing right there. But you notice it's not deselecting this item, and it's not adjusting after that. So in our player, after we've removed the item, we want to set that our item selected has been used, so we don't have one anymore. So we don't have an item selected. So we'll drag off here, and we want to set the item selected back to empty. You want to make sure that's hooked up to both the is valid and is not valid nodes. That way it does it either way. So we'll compile that, and then back in here, try it one more time. So I use it, yep, it's deselecting it. And if I run out, then it takes it completely away. So now we can do the same thing for the mana. So we'll go to use item. Oh, no, we got to set up the restore mana also. So let's go to the restore mana function. We'll add the input of the restore amount. And this one is going to be a float also. So just like the health one, we're going to drag out our current mana. We want to add to it. This is the amount we want to add. Then we will set our current mana to the new amount. But if the result is greater than or equal to our maximum amount, then we will just set our current mana to the full amount. Just like that. So now in the use item function, we can call that. So I'll drag off and say restore mana. Feed that restore amount directly in, and then feed that to remove item. And then now our mana potion is set up also. So let's take a look, see there. Oh, well, let me lower the mana so we can watch it in action. So now, I'll pick up some health potions, I'll pick up mana potion, so I can use my health potions, and I can use my mana potions, and it's all working just like it should. Now, for the sword and shield, let's set up theirs, the change sword. So this is going to, instead of being a float, this is going to take in sword info, which will be our item info struct. And what we'll do here is we're just going to set that sword info right here to that. Same thing with our shield, it's just going to take in the item info. I'll call it shield info. And then we'll set this to that. Now we will be expanding on these when we get to actually equipping, drawing the sword and all that. But let's just take a look real quick. So I'm going to set up a quick thing in the inventory. I'm just going to drag out an image. For the equipment, we're actually going to be using buttons so that when you click it, it'll restock it in your inventory and unequip it. But I'm just, for right now, going to set this up just to show you that it's working. So I'm going to bind this thing's image to the sword info. This is going to be the representation of our sword. So you'll see right now it's empty, but if I pick up that sword and I try to use it, it does nothing because I forgot to actually call the use item function because I'm stupid like that. Alright, so from our use item function in the player blueprint, we want to call out or drag off and say, what was it, change sword? Yeah, change sword. And then what we can do is we can drag this down, type RER for our reroute node, and just hook that right there. Then we will remove the item from our info, or from our inventory. So let me pick up a sword. And you'll see there's nothing there, but I can equip it, and now I have a sword equipped. As far as the game is concerned. We can't draw it yet, but we will be getting to that soon. We just need to get all this stuff first so that we can actually add in weapons and change them out and be able to draw them and stuff like that. So Alright, so you can just continue that process for any item info that you have. So, like if you have food and you're doing hunger, then you would just adjust them just like that. So it's breaking it open, determining the type of item, and then firing off an event based on that. And then once we do, we're removing the item by finding it in the inventory, getting that copy, breaking it open, seeing how many of that item we had left, and then either knocking that number down a little bit or removing it completely. So yeah, in the next one we will set up the equipment system so that we can actually, if we pick up multiple swords, then it'll adjust everything. It'll unequip, whatever the word is, so that we can equip the new sword, and then we'll start working on drawing it out. So alright, but that's it for this one, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye bye.